From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos pregame walkthrough, brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. My name's Ben Grant, joined as always by JB. We're here to get you set for Toronto's final home game of the season. It's the Battle of the QEW. It's also the first ever Future of Football game in conjunction with the Buffalo Bills, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats are in town for this one to take on the Argos, 3 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday. It's a big one. Argos' playoff lives continue to hang in the balance. Here's what's on the docket for today. Trade deadline came and went today at 4 p.m. The Argos remain silent. Should they have made a deal? Why are trade deadlines so rare in the CFL? Plus, we'll look into our own rule change proposals. On the heels of the league announcing their sweeping changes over the next 2 years, we thought this might be a good time to argue for changes that we would like to see. And then we'll look at the tiny window through which the Argonauts can still see the postseason. Plus, we'll have all our usual stuff: pick six, game preview, injury report, OCDC, one thing, put me down for 20, challenge flag, and our ticket giveaway. All that and more is coming up on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. This Saturday is the perfect time to check out the new Something in the Water Brewing. Ghost Taco is in full effect. It is fantastic, and it pairs so well with all of Something in the Water's award-winning beer, and they have so much great stuff to try. We've highlighted a few on here over the last few weeks. I got a few listener comments back from some of the beers they loved, some of the beers you have to try, and don't be shy in experimenting a little bit with what they've got down there. Obviously, Longboat is your pregame go-to. And if you're down there on Saturday, pregame, ready for that 3 o'clock start is perfect to go to Something in the Water beforehand. Obviously, you've got to have a longboat, but try something else. See what they recommend. Try All My Life I Wanted to Be Rich. Like that's one that got a lot of feedback. If you're into hoppy beers, that one is fantastic. And then, of course, JB's favorite, the Farm to Glass Pilsner, you can never go wrong with. So make sure you head to Something in the Water Brewing pregame this Saturday before the Argos take on the Ticats. JB, trade deadline day came and went, as it always does. It's not talked about much. It very rarely has a lot of deals. This year there was one deal, and it was actually a few days ago. Lorenzo Mauldin being traded from the Ottawa Redblacks to Calgary for a 4th-round pick. What do you make of how quiet the trade deadline deal is before we get into whether or not the Argos should have done something?
Well, I mean, I wonder how many teams in the league didn't even know it was the trade deadline. That might be some of it.
It's not well publicized.
No, it is not. There is not a TSN trade deadline episode.
Well, it's a good thing. It would have been pretty dry.
Yeah. It might have been an interesting study in just two people, just Naylor staring at the screen silently with, Philip Glass music in the background. I would sign up for that. I'm feeling a little punchy here tonight. I don't think there's many trades that you're going to make. I think, most teams are not looking to, there's so little in return that you're going to get. Like, teams are not going to give up a 1st-round pick. Most teams are pretty in it right now. Like, there are very few teams that are absolutely eliminated, so that right off the bat, I think, gets rid of a lot of your sellers. That's probably the primary reason. Then the secondary reason is, what are you going to get in return? So, are you going to get a 1? I think people would trade for 1s, but if you look at Mauldin, he's a great player, and you get a 4. I mean, honestly, why even make the trade? I don't see all the upside to just moving a guy out for a 4th-round pick. So, I think the fact that there are so few sellers. I mean, essentially, who are the sellers? Ottawa?
Yeah, and even they are mathematically alive. And I saw a lot of blowback online, like people saying, "Hey, why are you trading away our best player? We still are alive in the playoff race."
I mean, I'd love for teams to get a little more aggressive with trading. I think if you're close to try and get a team, throw one at a team. Flags fly forever. The goal is to win a championship, not to compete every year, he said, hopefully. So I wish teams were more aggressive. in terms of creating futures to try and get it. But I think most teams are a little risk adverse and are happy to kind of be status quo.
Yeah, I think all the things you said are very valid. Like the return's not great. Everyone's still technically in it. When the trade deadline went by, like no teams are technically out. That already makes it very tough. And then add to the fact that like football's a little different. You can't just for most positions, you can't just walk on that week and play. Now, with some injury problems that we've seen with the Argos this year, that has actually happened. But it's not ideal to have a player sign a few days before having to step on the field. Generally, you want a few weeks to bring them up to speed at the very least. And the more complex the position, the longer the time you need to gel with everybody. If you're talking about quarterback, obviously, or O-line, those are tough positions to just kind of walk on the field and try and play no matter how good you are. So I think those all contribute to why there aren't more deals. And like we have seen with Ottawa, you just get pounded by your fan base when you make deals like this. They don't see the upside of it necessarily because the draft isn't the same as the draft in a lot of leagues where like a fourth round pick in the NFL has a decent chance to be a starter on your team. The fourth round pick in the CFL in most cases doesn't actually make your roster. So it's a very different set of circumstances from other leagues at the trade deadline. Should the Argos... Sorry, go on.
No, I'm just going to jump in. I think it's also like kind of a tone that's set to, for a long time, the NFL trade deadline was a no event, kind of moment. And I would say in the last 2 years, trades have really increased, like almost, tenfold. So I do think it's also an issue of like, if teams start getting aggressive, I think that opens the door for other teams where some teams might not want to be the only team, trying to kind of stir up a trade market. So maybe we just need somebody to kind of be a little more aggressive out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I do think if you saw like BC, Winnipeg, Montreal start making deals, you're going to get Hamilton, Saskatchewan looking around saying, "Hey, we've got to do something." Everyone else is showing up what they're doing. And then transitioning that to Toronto, should the Argos have made a deal? My own thought on that is no. For all the reasons we just said, deals don't generally happen. I just don't see. First of all, the Argos are still in, and I hate giving up. At all. Like, I don't like what Ottawa did, even though they're a game further back than Toronto. They got one less win than Toronto does, and Toronto already feels very dire. I still don't like it. I think until you are mathematically out, you keep fighting with everything you've got. And so it would be different. I think if Toronto had been eliminated from the playoffs last week, you might have looked at it this week and said, well, I wonder what the team could get for some of the assets that they have. But again, I think we're probably talking about fourth rounders, fifth rounders, sixth rounders. And at that point, I don't know, do you really want to go and make other teams better for the sake of a sixth round pick? I don't know. I don't see it being worth it. So I'm not surprised the Argos were quiet today, and I don't blame them for being so. Let's get into our rule changes, JB. My rule change suggestions, I posted them on social media. They were more well received than I think the actual rule changes. They're less extreme. They don't involve moving pieces of the field or anything like that. But I've maintained that we should be looking at changes like this for a long time. And I want to, with a bit of a caveat at the beginning, both JB and I are going to suggest some rule changes. This does not mean that we don't like the CFL game. I've said many times, I love CFL football. I think it is the most exciting version of football there is. That doesn't mean you can't still tweak things. I think all sports leagues, I was trying to think of a sport where I wouldn't change a thing. It might be tennis. That might be the only one I can think of where, I kind of like how it is set up right now. But with every other sport, there's little things that you can adjust or try out and say, hey, let's give this a go. Maybe that makes it better. Maybe that opens something up. So the things that I would like to change, number one, no QB sneaks. I want to talk about that one more in a minute. 2, no ties, which doesn't happen a lot, but it happened in the NFL last week and it made me mad. I hate ties with a passion. Broadcast replay center conversations. You've got to let us hear what's happening. We've been talking about that for a long time. Everything can be challenged. You can challenge whatever you want. You only get your one challenge if it fails, but you can challenge anything. And lastly, and this one is courtesy of Bygone Boatman, who suggested this, and I wanted to add it to my list. A national QB doesn't count against the cap. I think that's really interesting. Now, it would give BC a huge advantage right now, but I think generally on the CFL landscape, it would encourage every team to carry a Canadian quarterback. And I think I would go as far to say that they don't even count as a roster spot, so that every team would have a Canadian quarterback on their roster. Those are the changes that I want to suggest. And then I think for further thought, the idea of players that have been with your team 5 years or more, something like 50% of their cap or their salary doesn't count towards the cap. Something like that. Some sort of loyalty clause where you're rewarded for hanging on to players for a long time, so that we don't see the year-over-year change that we see so much of in the CFL. So, JB, before you suggest any of your changes, what do you think about my quarterback sneaks change? Because that's the one I got the most feedback on, including from Tommy Stevens, the best quarterback sneak artist in the game, who had a thing or two to say about that in a friendly way. But he chimed in on that rule change.
I like those rule changes. I like them more than the ones that they did, because I think they are designed to try and improve the gameplay as opposed to make the gameplay look like an American football game. I like those. I do think the quarterback sneaking was kind of connected to my rule change. I do think it is a little too much in the CFL. I do think the essentially the automatic, well, except for the Argos sometimes, as long as you're not out of shotgun, the almost automatic, first down when you're only within a yard. It doesn't bother me, but I'm perfectly fine with getting rid of it. I think it's more interesting to see a team go on third down and have to run a play as opposed to like a rugby scrum.
Yeah, it's just not an exciting play, and it's not safe either. It's a very dangerous play. It's the least exciting play in the sport. It's in a game that's so exciting, like how we can sometimes have as many as like 8 or 9 of these through the course of the game. Just drives me up the wall. And so people have asked, like, yeah, and those aren't exciting touchdowns. Like, touchdowns should be the most exciting play of the game, and instead it's just like,
yeah, it was touchdown. Like the tush push in the NFL. I mean, that's stupid too. I don't understand why the NFL allows it.
Well, they won't next year. It'll be gone next year. I'm almost positive.
And maybe don't watch the games. I mean, that could be a case that the owners, don't actually watch any of the games that their teams are not in.
People have asked how you would officiate that. Like, how do you take that away? It's easy. If you were under center, so if you take a snap under center, your first step cannot be forward. That's your rule. So if you take an under center snap, your first step has to be somewhere else.
Well, then the Argos are all set.
Well, they would be. That's how short yardage will look. Or you can run running plays off that. You can even still scrape down the line, but people know you're not coming forward, so it's going to make it tough. But I would argue there's still a spot for like short yardage quarterbacks. There's in that same system, I would still employ a short, like Tommy Stevens is still a hugely valuable short yardage quarterback, even without quarterback sneaks. You just do it different ways, and it's more exciting because of that. And you get him to throw, and you get him to run off tackle or scrape down the line or hand it off, whatever it is.
Well, my sort of only rule change, because looking at different things, I like most of the rules. I wouldn't change really any of them. And there's certainly no rule that I find frustrating. I like that they can't touch the receivers down the field, and I like the halo around the punt returner, and the no yards thing doesn't bother me. I like that. I think it's great and safe, and fair catch does nothing for me. For me, once if I had to offer a rule suggestion, I might get rid of the 1 yard. I might have the teams line up on the line of scrimmage as opposed to having to line up 1 yard off. I think that would make it simpler to try and stop the quarterback. You can still try and quarterback sneak it, but it would be much harder. The 1 yard is really what gives you the advantage in the CFL. So I think if you got rid of the defensive line having to line up 1 yard off the ball, I think you would, in an easier way, phase out the quarterback sneak.
The problem I have with that, because I agree, like if you took away the neutral zone, you wouldn't need to put in your quarterback sneak change because it would be too much of a gamble at that point. It's why NFL teams rarely will go for it on 4th and 1 in their own end. It's changing a bit now. They're being a lot more aggressive now, and the analytics are saying you should go for it. But still, you'll still see, like in your own end, you will never see teams go for it on 4th and 1, whereas a ton of CFL teams in their own end will go for it on 3rd and 1. But that neutral zone being taken away would eliminate that. Now, do we want more punting though? And I don't know that that's the answer either, and that's the danger with a rule change like this. The neutral zone thing, the reason I think you need to leave it in there is, and again, maybe this is something I need to think carefully about, because I was going to say it hurts you in the run game. If you lose that neutral zone, 1 yard neutral zone, you just lost a yard of advantage running the football. Now, maybe that's okay with me. I had initially sort of gone into this thinking I don't like that because it limits offense. If it encourages teams to pass more, though, I can entertain that idea. But it's just one of those things I don't know if I see the reason why, if I'm taking away quarterback sneaks, why do we need to touch the neutral zone, I guess. You got to be on board with my broadcast replay conversations.
Yeah,
We've talked about that before.
I think we've beaten that one, pretty steadily. It would be nice to see. I do think it's coming. You see some American college ball instituting it. I do think the push to have it is coming for sure. I really do. I don't think this is a pie in the sky dream, and it's the kind of thing the CFL should take the lead on. I believe.
Yeah, me too. Because it's so much better. Again, I love, and it makes a difference. Like, I watch American college football a lot. My favorite conference to watch right now is the ACC because of this rule. It actually makes the games more enjoyable. That one thing where I like listening to any play that's being reviewed, where I can hear why the decision is being made, because we're often at a loss for, like, how could they possibly have overturned that, or how do they possibly stick with that call? Well, you know the answer to that because you hear the process that they went through, and you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get that. Instead of just this mystery, like, oh, I'm talking to someone that you can't hear or see. No, they said no. I'm like, oh, okay, well, how come I think yes? And this way, it fixes all of that. I love the transparency of it. That's one of my favorite of the rule changes. But I like all of those suggestions. Yours, I would only do if we're not going to do the take quarterback sneaks away rule change, I suppose. Any other rule changes that you've thought about or are on the fence about?
Yeah, I kind of rack my brain in terms of, things. There's certainly nothing, there wasn't anything I thought. Like, I played around with kind of radical XFL stuff, like, maybe you don't allow a field goal in the final 3 minutes, or no field goals, over the 40, those sorts of things to try and push touchdowns over field goals. But then it started getting a little XFL-y. But, I don't know, maybe there's something there.
Not all rule changes work. Like, I hate a couple of the recent NFL ones. Like, I really don't like the NFL kickoff. I thought I would at first, and I hate it.
No, it's very XFL-y. I don't know why people don't talk about that. Like, it does not look like football. It looks like USFL. Like, we just came up with this in a boardroom and we're trying it. Like, I'm really surprised. Like, I know they had essentially eliminated the kickoff return, but at least it looked like a kickoff. I'm not sure what this is. It's so it's just unusual to me that no purists have sort of raised the visual red flag of, like, what is this? This doesn't look like football. This looks like some like game that you do in gym class.
A few high-profile people have said something about it, but yeah, it hasn't really picked up steam. Everyone's just kind of like, yeah, this is how we kick off now. I think it's not so much like I don't care. Well, I do care a little bit that it looks dumb. I like the player safety part of it. Like, that's why they made this change. But I think what I don't like is that you can't onside kick anytime. Like, I hate that. I love a surprise onside kick. I know it doesn't happen a lot, but I love that you've got that in your back pocket where the momentum's starting to go your way, and you know what? I know it's like middle of the third quarter here, what if we threw down an onside kick right now, caught them off guard, kind of like the Argos did a few weeks ago, where with that beautiful onside kick that Hairolahu put down, not in the final 3 minutes, but it wasn't expected. The other team just wasn't ready for it, and they had this play in their bag of tricks. So that for me is enough reason not to go to a kickoff like that. So not every rule change does work in every league.
And I don't love every single kick ending up with holding on the receiving team. It's like, oh my, like, boys, can we not throw a flag can we just accept that some holding is going to happen in this circus trick scenario that you have created? Because it just becomes so monotonous to be like, oh, why don't we just, whatever the kick is, we're just automatically going to move them back half the distance to the goal. I do find that incredibly frustrating that there is essentially a whole, as far as I can tell, maybe it's just my team, but the percentage of kickoffs that involve holding on the receiving team were very high.
Yeah, no, the NFL has got an issue with that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make some more tweaks to it. But that's what you do. Like, I applaud them for trying something new. It doesn't look good. It doesn't work to me. So try something else. See if you can
maybe go no flags. Just like
hold
chaos.
all you like, boys.
Yeah, just chaos. Just this one time we're putting it away, and it's street rules.
Like the Purge, but on kickoffs.
Yeah,
it's basically.
Yeah, have a air siren horn. Yeah, like I said, I told you I'm feeling punchy tonight.
Let's talk about this playoff situation that the Argos are looking at. It doesn't look good. It's still mathematically possible. It does not look good. It's really simple now. You're talking about 3 teams. So the Argos have to win out. There's no other option. All 3 of the remaining games have to be wins. It's hosting Hamilton this week. It's traveling to Calgary, traveling to Saskatchewan. Those are your 3 games. Must be wins. Anything other than those being wins, and it doesn't matter what else happens. For the rest of the situation, the good news is you need a team to fall on their face, and the good news is you've got 3 candidates for it. None are great, and you're asking them to lose out. So the situation for each of those, it's Calgary, Winnipeg, and BC. You need one of those 3 teams to lose the remaining games. The unfortunate part is Calgary is the team that sort of seems to be falling apart a little bit. They have the toughest schedule of all these teams, but they've got 4 games left. That's what makes it tough. The other teams just have 3. So if Calgary had 1 fewer game remaining, I think that might be a better option. And of course, one of them is against Toronto too. I think there would be some more hope there, but it doesn't look great. So Calgary's 4 games, they're at BC. I could certainly see them losing that. At Hamilton, I could see them losing that. Hamilton's trying to clinch a home first round bye, and a home playoff game for the East Final. Versus Toronto, we know about that game. But then they end their season at Edmonton in the very final week 21, when Edmonton...
The U-Haul Bowl.
Yeah, will be out the door. And that's, like, if it comes down to that one, the only hope there, if it comes down to that, if Toronto's taking care of business going into that... and Toronto's on the bye in that last week, right? So let's say Toronto's won their 3 games, Calgary's lost their 3 games, and here you go into the very last week of the season, Calgary against a team that has been eliminated, which will probably be for a few weeks now. The only saving grace is that it is an interprovincial rivalry, and the Edmonton Elks generally don't want anything nice to happen to the Calgary Stampeders. However, I'm not sure the Edmonton Elks will be fighting on behalf of the Toronto Argonauts based on what happened a few weeks ago in Toronto either. So if it comes down to that one, that will be a very difficult game, I think, for Argos fans to watch. Winnipeg's road to 0-3, it's probably the second most likely, but it's not great. It starts at Edmonton, so we'll know the answer to this question in a few days. They are are they on a bye this week? Yeah, they're on a bye this week. So we won't actually know this answer till next week. But so their first game, they're on a bye right now. Then they're at Edmonton versus Saskatchewan versus Montreal. That's a tough finish. The Saskatchewan, Montreal, those are not easy games by any stretch. Winnipeg is not a great football team this year in my mind, but that at Edmonton could be the one that really trips up Toronto's playoff hopes. And then lastly, BC Lions hosting Calgary, hosting Edmonton, at Saskatchewan. it depends on how that starts off. But again, they've got Edmonton in there. I don't know why all three of these teams have Edmonton in their last three games, but that's just how it has worked out. So I think of these teams, you look at that BC Calgary game. That's where it begins. For BC Calgary, that's this weekend. And whichever team wins that game is going to eliminate them from contention here. So if Calgary wins, then we're no longer talking about them. If BC wins, we're no longer talking about them. So it just leaves us with two. So either way, there's only going to be two teams left in the equation after this week, and that will simplify things even more. So pretty dire, JB, percentage chances. Is this a less than 5 at this point in your mind?
Yeah, it is the definition of a long shot. I would say it's unlikely.
It is, but you got to do what you can control. The Argos can only control their own destiny right now, or not their own. They can't control their own destiny. They control their own games, and so you just take care of business on your end, and you have your fingers crossed, and you glue yourself to the TV afterwards, and see if someone else can bail you out a little bit, and keep you alive in the playoff hunt. Let's get into pick 6. Interesting question this week. We got a bunch of interesting questions. Mark Mauldin is our winner for pick 6 this week. So Mark Mauldin, you have won a 6-pack of beer from Something in the Water Brewing. If you want to win a 6-pack of beer like Mark, you've got a few remaining opportunities to do so. Look for the prompt midweek, usually Monday, Tuesday, actually early week, I guess I'd say, on social media, on Twitter at Ben_Grant, or on Blue Sky at Coach Ben Grant. And when I ask for your Argos questions, submit one. And if we answer it here on the show, then you win a 6-pack of beer courtesy of Something in the Water Brewing. Mark Mauldin is asking about Chad Kelly for next year and what you do in terms of thinking about extension. And so he says, Kelly's going to the last year of his contract. Will the Argos be interested in extending a player who won the MOP but struggled in the playoffs, and then missed most of the next season due to suspension, and then his backup won the Grey Cup game, and then is likely to miss this entire year due to injury? There's no question he is, and that's the end of Mark's question. It's my add-ins now. There's no question in my mind that he is one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the CFL. When healthy, I would take him over anyone else in the CFL if he's 100%. But JB, we don't know the answer to that. We don't know what his status is like right now. How do you answer this question? What would you do in terms of thinking about an extension with a guy that may be your best player?
Yeah, it's a really thorny, complicated question. On one hand, if you feel confident that he is going to return next year, having had a full year to recover, which is not unusual. I think it's unusual to not play at all, but it's not unusual to not be back to the same level for until the second season. He is going to be somebody that teams will be keen to try and sign. I guess it depends on your confidence level about if he went into free agency. I guess the business decision would be to not do an extension until you see him play again. And then, once he's able to play again, you could open the extension. But I'd be interested to see what he and his agent, how they play it. But I think as a team, I would probably wait until camp. If I felt like he came into camp and he was the starter, then I would probably sign him to an extension during camp.
It's a really tough one because, like, from a player and agent point of view, your value is not as high as it could be at the moment because you haven't played in football in a year, and so that part of you wants to sort of show that, hey, I've still got this, and I'm still worth this much money or more. And then the other side of it, though, is that you want some security. You don't necessarily want to go into, no player ever wants to go into the last year of their contract without signing. So you want an extension because otherwise you're at risk. And if you do have an injury earlier in the year on the last year of your deal, you're not going to get as much in your next deal. That's just, it's sort of the unfair nature of contracts that way. So it does make this very curious to me. I think the answer is you and the Argos know way better than we do as to his health status and what he looks like and will look like for next year. And I think from an Argos point of view, if you feel that he can continue to play football at even close to the level he was at, then I do think you have to look at extending, because otherwise he's going to end up on another team, very well paid, and he's going to win that team a Grey Cup. It's going to happen. And so when you get a quarterback that is at his level, you want to retain him, because someone else will if you don't. And he has shown that he can play as well as anybody in the CFL when healthy. So that's the decision they're going to have to start thinking about a little. I'm sure they have already, but something that we'll maybe hear some more about in the offseason, and maybe as we get closer to camp next year, if they health is good. So thank you, Mark, for your question. That's a great one. It takes a lot of thought, and we don't have an answer to it, but that's okay. That's what makes it such a good question. JB, let's get into our game preview this week. So it's the Future of Football game. I'll tell you what that means, and then JB, you can kind of give me a reflection on this and how you think this is going to go. So the Future of Football game is the first of this partnership between the Buffalo Bills, the Toronto Argonauts, that was announced a few weeks back. The highlight of it is the team's shared commitment to growing youth football in Canada. And we're seeing some of the fruits of that labor already at this game, where you've got 200 kids who are going to be in attendance that were part of the first Future of Football flag camp earlier this month, hosted by the Argos and Bills. And those attendees are going to have an opportunity to play on the field in pregame. Obviously, that's really cool. There's also some in-game experiences, like both Jim Kelly and Doug Flutie are going to be there. I believe from the writing that I got here, I believe the Bills mascot and Jason obviously will be there. And there'll be some special guests from both Bills and Argos participating in the t-shirt giveaways and running some of the in-game commercial break contests that you have in stadium. Plus, there's the giveaway, and it's a pretty good one. 7,500 fans are going to get the commemorative Bills Argos t-shirt, which the Argos put the design out on their social media today. You can check it out. It's pretty cool. It looks to me like sort of Doug Flutie in a throwing motion with like 6 different stills. And the first 3 are Argos as he's kind of going to his wind, and the last 3 as he's releasing the ball are with him in his Bills uniform. It's a pretty cool looking shirt. Everybody likes free t-shirts. And then if you want to be part of this, the deal is fantastic. And I think it's one of the reasons they've sold so many tickets to this event. The Upper East Side is open, and tickets start at $20 with an option for a $5 youth ticket. And all proceeds from that go towards the MLSE Foundation to support youth flag football. So that in itself, I think, is a reason to get out there for the game. $20 for the ticket, $5 to bring your kid along is a pretty fantastic deal. And knowing that that money is going to support youth football makes that one even better. So, JB, there's a lot of stuff going on. What's your reflection on this? It's strange, right? It's an odd collaboration. We haven't seen anything like this before. I'm really interested to see how it works.
Yeah, I know why they agreed to work with the Bills, or to try and find, a partnership, because the Bills were coming regardless. It's not something that I'm necessarily going to get on my soapbox and rant about. I don't have much interest in that partnership. I think partnership is probably like a very corporate use of that word. An NFL franchise is not partnering with anybody. So I think it's okay. I mean, if the t-shirt looks cool and people are into it, that's great. I don't know what the reaction from the fans will be. Obviously, many CFL fans have their guard up a little bit about the NFL and the NFL's involvement. So I am curious to see whether there is an interest in the t-shirt, because I do wonder if people are going to not really be into the vibe of that t-shirt.
Yeah, I'm interested to see it too, and the reaction like you're talking about, because there are a lot of CFL fans that hate the NFL, hate anything, even the mention of the NFL they hate. And so I'm interested to see how that happens. Now, that's not me. I love the NFL. I love the CFL. I love U Sports. I love NCAA. I like all football. I'll even sit there and watch the UFL and enjoy it quite happily. I like watching football. So I'm all for cheering for your CFL team and then cheering for your NFL team. My NFL team is not the Bills, but I appreciate that there are a lot of people in Toronto whose NFL team is the Bills, and there are a lot of Bills Argos fans combos, but there are some that want nothing to do with the NFL. So we'll see. I want to see what that ends up looking like and what the reception is. And I guess
Well, I think they were.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I think they were smart to make it a T-shirt and not an item that can be, thrown as a projectile.
Yeah, well, that's always smart.
Yeah, it wasn't an Argos Bills seat cushion.
Sure. You remember when the Jays used to do Bat Day, and then that went horribly wrong in some stadiums?
So I think in general that's a good idea, but I think especially here, you don't necessarily need to have a straw vote on interest in terms of things going flying through the air.
Let's get into the injury report. Hamilton looks pretty healthy. They do have a few guys on the 6 game, but they are a pretty healthy team right now. Everybody on their list went full except their fullback, Daniel Bell, not to be confused with their running back, Greg Bell. Everyone else is full. So we expect to see Hamilton pretty healthy. All of the guys that missed some time last week are back. So that's a pretty short list to go through. For the Argos, not so much. Again, you got 13 guys on the 6 game injured list, and they are extremely banged up at the tackle position. Makes you wonder what they're going to do there. And I think there's some interesting options for them in terms of what they can do at the tackle spot. But that's where I'm most worried. We'll have to see how it breaks down throughout really it's not the rest of the week, it's tomorrow. But Sage Dockstader went full today. He's coming back from a head injury. That, I think, maybe opens some possibility. I wouldn't mind seeing Dockstader give it a shot at tackle. I really would like to see that. I think he's got the ability to play there. Now, coming off the shelf for several weeks now, that's a tough spot to be put into. So I'm not sure we're going to see that. I think it's unlikely, actually. Ryan Hunter has been limited all week. We'll have to see if he can go. He's hugely important. Brian Kemp, who didn't make it through last week's game, hasn't practiced at all this week. Did not practice yesterday, did not practice today. So tackle remains a problem. Is it going to be a struggling Ryan Hunter who's not able to go full in practice on one side and John Boss on the other side? Or do they maybe go elsewhere in the roster? And they've got a few options there, including their recent Montreal transaction, and also 3 guys that are sitting on the practice roster waiting for a chance to go, who do play the tackle spot. So there are options for them there. Elsewhere, aside from the offensive line, Nick Arbuckle's been limited all week, kind of like he was last week. I expect him to play. I think it'll be like last week. And I know a lot of fans were disappointed in his performance, felt that he couldn't generate enough power with his calf injury last week. I still think that's the best shot this team's got. I like the potential in Daigie. You haven't seen the other guys at all, so I don't think you even consider them. It's just Daigie or a banged up Arbuckle. I think a banged up Arbuckle gives you a better shot to win. They had a chance to win that game, but they just didn't come through. I think you let Arbuckle go out there and you go down with whatever he can give you. Elsewhere, Cameron Judge missed practice yesterday due to illness. He's back again. And Anthony Lanier has not practiced this week. Didn't practice yesterday or today with the ankle injury. Those are the big names on the list. Mayan Williams limited in practice today. I don't think we'll see him. Dave Ungerer was limited today with a knee injury. We'll see what his status is like tomorrow. But they're a banged up team. There's no question about that going to this one. It's not ideal, but just like last week, it is all hands on deck. Anyone that can make it's got to be out there. Let's get into OCDC. Let's start with you, JB. You are the defensive coordinator for the visiting Hamilton Tiger Cats. What are you doing to shut down Nick Arbuckle and his sore calf? Or if they go to Jared Daigie, what's your defensive plan? Because they've struggled defensively against the Argos this year, as a lot of teams have. What do you try and do? Do you try and do a little bit of what BC did last week?
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of been calling for that. I think you have to. I think you have to dare Toronto to run on an almost empty box. And if you have 7 guys in deep coverage, it becomes incredibly hard to find. And even with a 3-man rush, or 4-man rush, but even if you have a 3-man rush and you're dropping your guys It's just hard to find somebody open. Three guys are going to get home, fast enough to do it. So for me, I would take that BC game plan, and really, play. You're going to play man on those quick underneath routes, and then you're going to play an umbrella over top, and really try and force Toronto into trying to run, which hopefully they will. But I do think if you take away the deep pass and you take away those quick hitters, it can be tough sledding for Toronto if you can have the discipline to keep it up. Because I'm sure defensive coordinators feel exposed because everything in their body tells them that you shouldn't have such an empty box, that you're always trying to kind of find a balance between run and pass, and you feel you might sell out once in a while, but to kind of sell out the whole game for one of the two, I'm sure feels wrong, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. It's just like with offensive coordinators calling 5-yard passes the whole game. They don't like to do that. Defensive coordinators don't like to do something that seems illogical, but it worked pretty well for the Lions last week. So we'll see if Hamilton tries to copy that. On the offensive side of the ball for Hamilton, I think there's a lot of ways you can go with this. My plan is Bell and Lawler. So in terms of the run game, I think Toronto's got some vulnerability, especially inside. And with Lanier's health a question mark, I think that's a place that I would attack. So I'm talking with Bell being hot these last few games, inside zone, quick hitters, try and force the linebackers to creep up a little bit. See if you can even influence the halfbacks, the safeties. You mix in some weak side runs, delayed draws, just to keep the edges honest. And then if those halfbacks start creeping towards the line of scrimmage, safety starts creeping a little bit, that's when we make use of Lawler. We move him around a ton. He doesn't mind lining up inside, outside. I would even try him in the backfield a little bit just to see if you can play around with Toronto's defensive rules. Because based on the last matchup, they're going to have answers to Lawler being lined up on different guys because they exploited Toronto last time with it. So there will be answers this time. But whenever there's answers, there are possibilities for new confusions. And you want to move Lawler around to see if you can create busts elsewhere. See if you can not only get mismatches for him, but maybe expose other areas of the field for your other guys. And Hamilton does have a lot of other weapons that they can go to. And then I think philosophically for Hamilton, they just ran out of time. Like it looked good for them last time. They scored very late, and then Toronto came down with that huge Brissett play and the winning field goal. You got to continue to be aggressive as Hamilton. So you're going for it on 3rd and 2. Anytime you get close to midfield, I think that's go territory. I think you want to script like at least 2 shot plays per quarter where you're going to try out a deep ball and just see if something hits. And then stay aggressive in the high red zone. Don't settle for field goals. Go for touchdowns. That all goes hand in hand with the Hamilton offensive plan this week. JB, let's switch to the good guys. What is your defensive plan for the Argos? How do you slow down Bo Levi Mitchell and a running back in Bell who is getting hot?
Yeah, it's a much more complicated question for Toronto. Hamilton obviously is one of the best right there with BC in terms of passing offenses. Lawler is a huge problem. You have to keep Lawler in check. You have to double him in obvious passing downs, and they're going to move him around. And you can't double him all the time, but I do think you have to dedicate a double to him. At least, 75% of the time. I just can't accept Lawler being the leading receiver for Hamilton. I think if you're a defensive coordinator, you just have to simply say, okay, if somebody else, torches us for 150 and 2 touchdowns, all right, well, so be it. But it's not going to be Kenny Lawler with 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. And so for me, that's my primary focus. They can't give up on the run. Hamilton's not a great running team, but you can't give up on the run the way Hamilton can against Toronto. I do think you have to keep a few more guys in the box, but you are going to go slightly lighter because they are a pass-first offense. I think you really have to work to stop the pass, and you'll just have to live with some running because Hamilton is much like the conversation we just had. Hamilton's offensive coordinator is just simply not going to dial up run after run. just because you're giving it to them. That's not who they are. It's not what they have. I don't believe they have the discipline to do it, to just simply take the ball out of Bo Levi's hands and run it down Toronto's throat. So I think you can use that to your advantage, that they're not going to do that. So if the running back goes for 100 yards, so be it. If you can keep Bo Levi under 3 and you can keep, Lawler under 80, then I think you've got a decent shot at winning.
For Toronto, as we switch to the offensive side of the ball, my theme for this week, and I don't like it philosophically, but I think this is the way to win this game. I think this is one of those death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of game, because you've got Arbuckle's calf, which is compromised, diminished velocity, maybe a little bit there. So long developing plays are a liability. So instead, we're going to structure our attack around quick game, slants, outs, sticks, hitches, shallow crossers. RPOs, I think, have to become a big part of it, which again, I like Arbuckle doing. Those are your glance routes. And I think more bunch plays. They ran a few against BC. I like all their bunch concepts. I think they're pretty cool. They're different from what everyone else runs. You create free releases and rubs, and I think those are, again, quick hitters. So if you got like the calf concern and you're concerned about your O-line, I feel like that's your passing set. And if you get 5 or 6 yards of pass, so be it. And you just got to make sure you're not dropping footballs and you're not creating turnovers. You've got to be able to sustain long drives. And then I think you lean into what the receivers do well. This isn't necessarily a receiving core of burners, but they're very highly skilled positional players. They're great with leverage. They're great with technique. And so again, then we get into our crossers and digs, flood concepts where they can keep their spacing. And Arbuckle's got to take advantage of back shoulder throws, getting the DBs turned around, because like the Hamilton DBs are good individually. That's what's so strange about this defense, because you look at each individual player, you're like, well, that's a good DB. That's a good DB. These guys are all good DBs. And yet collectively they make mistakes. They have spacing issues. They do get their signals crossed. I don't think communication is the best. And so that's one of Toronto's strengths. I think that's why they match up quite well against Hamilton in theory, because you can do things to confuse the opposition. Now, it makes it harder if you're not able to just drop back and wail away. But I feel like with some of those bunch concepts, you can really take advantage, and you go back to those floods, like I said. And then to add in Spencer Brown, I think it's going to be tough to run, but you have to make him a weapon in other ways. So I think the way you can make him a problem is his matchup with linebackers, those angle routes, Texas routes, those like diamond routes that you see where he cuts out towards the flats and then back in over the middle. It's so hard to cover him on routes like that. You also want to get him involved in the screen game. I think that's going to be huge this week. Run a lot of running back screens, dump offs, swing passes, and then to slow down, to be able to get him to run, throw in some other eye candy elsewhere. Get receivers coming across with jet motion or orbit motion, anything just to kind of stall the defense a little bit and see if you can get a few yards with traditional run plays with Spencer Brown. So death by paper cuts this week, JB. What is your one thing heading into this one?
Well, I mean, I think I've said Kenny Lawler, but I won't beat that. A little spicier one. Hamilton's very good on specials. And for me, I would love to see the Argos. So if you take the punt return average and the kick return average, I would like that number to be less than 30. So when you add the punt return and the kick return average, I want it under 30.
That's tough. That's going to be tough.
Very. It is. But I'm weary of choosing low-hanging fruit, like make sure all the laces are tied up kind of stuff. So here we go. I'm putting it to them. This is the game they need. I want elite punt, kick, return coverage.
My one thing also involves math, but not as complex math. I want Arbuckle.
Yeah, very complex.
Yes. Well, you have to add two numbers together, JB.
Yeah, that's true. True.
So mine.
We have to average. You have to find the average first.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank
I know.
You very much. I don't even know how that works. Can you add averages together? Is that a thing?
Just add so whatever the kickoff return average is, you got that number, like let's say 19.8 yards, and then add it to the 9.8 punt return. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
For mine, it's completion percentage. Arbuckle's completion percentage has got to be 75 or higher, or whoever's in there. If it's Daigie, it's the same thing. Like, my plan's the same either way. Arbuckle with a hurt calf to me is very similar to what I would do with Jared Daigie anyway. But the completions have to be high. If you're going with death by 1,000 paper cuts, you can't have drop balls, you can't have incomplete passes. So 75%, I think, is where you got to have your basement, and hopefully you can actually register one of those rare games in the 80s, which is not easy to do, but with shorter passes, and especially if Hamilton's going to play that BC umbrella, I think there's opportunities to do that. It is time for Put Me Down for 20. This is a game that we want to warn you not to take too seriously, because we certainly don't. If you're ever going to bet on anything, please don't base it on our advice here, and only ever bet the amount that you'd be happy to lose as a cost of entertainment. For our wagers last week, we were 0 for 4, JB, and we are actually one of our last 8. And in fact, actually, we're worse than that. We were one of our last 12, JB. We were on fire for a bit. I was all the way up to 273. You were at 229. We have hit one bet in the last 12 bets. And it was an even money bet at that. So I am all the way down to 233. You are all the way down to 169 and a half.
Good God.
So this is why you should not bet your hard-earned money.
I know. In fairness, I think there were some tough beats in there. A sprinkle in a few tough beats.
It's true. Do you want to take honors? Do you want me to go here first?
Sure. Here are my picks. My increasingly swiftly chosen picks. I'm going to go with Arbuckle. Going with Arbuckle over 1.5 touchdowns at 124.
Okay.
Not much juice. Thanks for nothing. Generic sports book.
And with your non-Argos bet?
My non-Argos bet, again, not much action out there on the streets. But I'm going to take Calgary. I think that Calgary is not the path. I think, like you mentioned, 0-4 is not the path. So I take Calgary to win here and send BC potentially. I think, they're not very happy about how they lost last time. I think Calgary comes out ready to play, and I think they beat BC at plus 160.
All right, for my fleeces, I'm going to put 10 fleeces on Herzla with a first half touchdown at plus 250. I was debating, do I go first half, do I go second half? I feel like there are more passing touchdowns in the second half, but I think Arbuckle's going to be at his best in the first half before that the effects of that calf potentially start to weigh. So that's why I go first half at plus 250. And then for my other wager, I'm putting 10 fleeces on a really kind of lame parlay. 2 favorites, Saskatchewan and BC. I'm putting them both on the money line, and that parlay pays at 1 plus 128. So it's not exactly the most exciting bet I've ever had, but those are my 2 plays. And then let's do our challenge flag, JB. I won last week. You had a tough week last week after those back-to-back 4-0 weeks from a few weeks ago. Yeah. It's been tough sledding. Last week you were 1-3. I challenged your Hamilton-Winnipeg pick. I took Winnipeg, and they ran away with that one. So I'm winning now 10-7, and we're getting close to, I think the magic number is now 1, JB.
Oh, God. I guess I'm in an Argos mode here. I got to win out.
You got to win out to win this, I believe. Yes, you do. You have to win out. We could, I guess, in theory, have a tie somewhere in there, but it's unlikely. So
right,
let's go through.
I'm ready.
All right, we got only 3 games this week. Saskatchewan at Ottawa.
Saskatchewan.
I'm not going to challenge that one.
Yeah.
I think Ottawa, like after you trade away your best player and it looks so dire, like I think that game may be just a blowout for the Riders. We'll see. Hamilton at Toronto. This is a one point spread.
I mean, it's tough. Hamilton's a good team. Toronto at home fighting for their lives. I don't think they're going to roll over. They do have a lot of injuries. There's no 2 ways about it. But Toronto at home against Hamilton, I like Toronto.
And then Calgary at BC. Where are you going to hedge on your stamps?
Oh, that is a good question. Yes, I am going to hedge.
Okay.
I wasn't going to, but that's a good suggestion.
It is, because now you
I
make my job very tough.
no, that played out really well for me actually. So I do like my BC Mountains.
I don't know who to challenge here. I like all three picks. I think Saskatchewan's going to win. I think Toronto's going to win. I think BC's going to win. I think I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to try and burn you with your own fire. I'm going to take the Calgary Stampeders, who I don't actually think is going to win, but I enjoy the fact
Yeah,
that...
that's great. I think that's almost a win-win for me. I mean, maybe I lose the title, but if I can get my Golden Fleeces back over 200, that will be a fine accomplishment.
All right, well, that's my challenge flag for this week. So I've got Calgary, you've got BC. We'll see how this must-win for you works out. And then finally, before we sign things off here, we've got our ticket giveaway courtesy of Something in the Water Brewing. And our winner this week is Bob Marshall. You have won 2 tickets to see this Saturday's game, courtesy of Something in the Water Brewing. So we will get in touch with you and get you set up with those tickets. Thanks for playing. And if you want to win... and this is the last home game of the season, so this is the last ticket giveaway of the season from Something in the Water Brewing. It's awesome how they do that. I love that they give their tickets away for every single home game. And Bob, you are the last to collect on that for this season, so congratulations to you. Saturday, 3 o'clock, your day starts at Something in the Water Brewing. You walk on over to BMO Field to see the Buffalo Bills and Toronto Argonauts in a collaboration hosting the Hamilton Tiger Cats in a must-win game. Bring the family. Like I said before, tickets are great for the Upper East Side, starting at $20 with $5 to bring your kid along as well. Go to argonauts.ca to check out the details for that one. That will just about do it for us on this pregame walkthrough episode of the X's and Argos podcast. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Together, fight the foe.